Good afternoon, friends. Today I would like to talk on the subject matter of healing, my own experiences, and how I stumbled upon this mighty gift within myself. Um, it was back in 1984 when I had my first awareness. I don't know, I may have had experiences before this that I wasn't aware of, but it was back in 1984 when I was training as an aromatherapist at the Robert Tisserand School in London. And as part of the course and the exams, I had to treat a certain amount of people for a certain amount of times, and what to actually write what I was treating them for, what oils I was using, etc., and what the result was. So my very first guinea pig was a man from Donegal, who was living in London, who hadn't been working for 10 months because he was off work with a hairline fracture on the third vertebrae, um, which was in traction. He had a neck brace on for these 10 months and it wasn't healing. So that was going to be a nice difficult one. I chose my oils, and obviously I wasn't going to be massaging the area because obviously you don't want to create any damage or any more damage than is already present. So I chose anti-inflammatory oils to use and relaxing oils, because one of the things was you couldn't sleep well, obviously, either with the condition. So I worked in the area for an hour, as in I worked around his body, uh, but I spent the majority of that time just gently putting the oil around the area of the fractured vertebrae and just holding my hands over that area. And long story short, when I asked him to report back to me, he reported back 2 weeks later to say that he wasn't wearing the neck brace anymore. His neck had been healed. He had this checked and verified with hospital doctors, whatever means he needed to do. And he was back at work. And then a week later, he rang me back and said, I forgot to tell you when you did that healing on me. Well, I didn't know it was healing at the time. I was working or attempting to practice as an aromatherapist. But he said to me, since that treatment, my eyesight has been restored to, I can see perfectly, whereas he'd been wearing glasses all his life. So I really didn't pay an awful lot of attention to this at the time. I just assumed that it was something that anyone could do or everyone could do. But as time went on, there were so many different instances of things occurring. I've already spoken about the little bird who just dropped straight out of the sky at my feet, dead on the pavement, upside down, eyes rolled in the head, and no beating, no pulse coming from the bird at all. And within there we go, beautiful universe. And within a very short space of time, maybe 5 minutes, that maybe even less, that bird's heart was beating again and it was back to life. That was another experience. Around the time in London, while I was still, after I trained as an aromatherapist and I was working in that field, my partner at the time had badly damaged his knee by pulling out a very large marble fireplace, and he fell backwards and the fireplace fell on top of him, landing on his across his knee. So by the time he got to me, he went to the hospital to have x-rays anyway. So by the time he got to me, uh, the knee was swelling up pretty badly and was really red, sort of raw and inflamed. He could hardly get up the stairs where I was staying at the time. There were stairs. Um, and within an hour of working on his knee, just with the oils, anti-inflammatory oils, and just holding my hand around the area, within an hour the swelling had gone down completely, and he was back to, you know, he was back to almost normal. You know, obviously since I was his partner at the time, I continued to work on this on a daily basis, so he didn't get any major problems with this at all afterwards. I'm going to take a look at the list of ones I had written down here. Another one was a child in Portsmouth who was wheezing very badly with asthma. He was only 18 months old. His mother was only 19 years of age, and she had him on an asthma inhaler. And I thought, God, this is terrible. Just seeing a little child having to inhale this, it just didn't seem natural or right to me. So I asked her if she would mind, you know, if I did some healing on him. At that stage, I was aware of my healing abilities, for this was a few years later. So I'd had a little pink quartz stone, so I gave the child the quartz stone, the rose quartz, and he clutched it. He wasn't letting go of that stone, and he just held it to his chest. And I did some healing on his whole, obviously, chest, lung area, and that just cleared up completely. His asthma went away entirely, the child was, and he wasn't letting go of that stone. And I said, no problem, you hold on to that stone, child, you know, it's yours, you keep it. So there was another experience. An interesting one was a friend of mine, Molly. Again, she lived in Portsmouth, in the south of England, and she was fairly advanced with cancer at the time, and she was very bloated with the steroids, and she had such a generous soul, this lady. Hello, Molly. She had such a generous soul that everyone took advantage of her. It was quite awful to watch at times, you know. So I spoke to her about this as well, that stop letting people take advantage of your good nature. Right to almost the end of her life, people were taking advantage of her good nature. It was quite shocking to watch, really. But anyhow, I asked her, would she like me to do some healing on her, and she accepted graciously. I didn't have a couch to use with me in Portsmouth, so I just had to do it while she lay on her settee. Now, as I went around her body, normally the energy would flow straight through me, and I would feel the heat in my hands streaming through. But I didn't feel any heat at all. I went around her entire body, and I was feeling, my goodness, I'm not doing any good here at all. Just absolutely no feeling of healing energy at all. Anyway, I continued on to the end, and thinking, goodness, I don't know what's happening here. I've never experienced this before. So when I'd finished, I was going to apologize to her because she had never experienced a channeling healing experience before. And I was about to apologize to her, but before I spoke, she said to me, "Thank you so much for that." She said the energy was amazing. So there you go. As it turned out, as often when people who do have cancer, that this may be what you feel. You don't feel any heat. She's pouring her love through now. Do you see that? Do you see the change in energy? You dear soul, I love you, Molly. Now, 6 weeks later, well, I knew it was probably too late to help to keep her on the earth plane, but if you can assist somebody's experience while they're still here, if you can ease their burden, I think that's a lot of the experience I've had in life. Is it's not all about healing someone to remain here. Sometimes it's healing them to help release them. And if you can help with their suffering in any way, that's the bonus, that's the gift, that's the service you're being. So anyway, 6 weeks later, she passed over to the other side, and I knew when she passed, for that very night, as I lay in bed asleep, I was woken up, and I very, very, very powerfully felt her presence. And for once in my life, I didn't feel any fear with it. I felt she just came and gave me the most wonderful hug and said thank you. See how precious. Never ever think anything is ever wasted. Never ever think for a second that any kindness you ever do in this life will ever be wasted. Never stop caring, never stop sharing, never stop giving, never stop being a service to humanity. For when you're being a service to humanity, you're being of the highest service to yourself. And the universe will always be pouring the most amazing energy through you when you're coming from the purest heart intention. If your intention is to purely be of service and honor and value and worth, the universe will pour the most amazing energy through you. I never ever had to train to be a healer. It was a gift that I had earned through having nothing stand in the way of being of service. Having a pure, open heart and a willingness to help others when they need help. That is how I discovered my gifts. I'm going to tell you a few more stories here. Jonathan. Yes, a friend of mine in London who was terribly, terribly, terribly afflicted with lupus. And how it appeared for him was there are times when his skeletal system would just kind of seize up and he couldn't do anything. He had to have carers lift him in and out of the bath and do everything for him. He was completely and utterly crippled with it. So lupus is something that attacks the organs as well as the bones. It's arthritis form of, I don't know the complete ins and outs, but I do know that when he was in a very bad state, he was completely and utterly crippled. He couldn't do anything for himself. And when he was out of these states, he'd be out partying, trying to make the most of his time instead of dealing with how to sort it. But anyway, I offered to do an aromatherapy healing on him. He accepted, and when I came to his home to do it, he couldn't bear me being anywhere near him. He said, "Take your hands off me." He said, "I'm on fire. I'm burning up when you touch me." So I thought, right, okay. So I held my hands back about a foot away from his body, um, just the kind of auric field. And even then he couldn't stand it. He said, "Take your hands away." I said, "I'm not touching you." He said, "I'm on fire." So I thought, well, okay, this isn't working. My intention was not to set him on fire. um, so I suggested to him that he come and have a hypnotherapy um, um, experience. I was training as a hypnotherapist at this stage. Um, I was always discovering life, so I was leaving no stone unturned until I understood life. So I trained in many, many, many areas. Healing wasn't one of them. That was the natural gift of my soul earned. Um, but anyhow, he was reluctant to have a hypnotherapy session initially because he was brought up as a Jehovah's Witness. So, of course, anything like that was going to be considered as the devil's work. So, I think Christianity had the same sort of angle on it, sway on it. Anyway, I said to him, "Look, you don't have to speak at all. You don't have to reveal anything at all. If you're unhappy at any time, just it's as simple as that. No, you're under no pressure." So anyway, I started doing the relaxation, speaking with him, and deepening techniques. And at that stage, he almost drowned him. From setting him on fire to almost drowning him. He was only sitting on my settee, but I was doing deepening techniques using the ocean as an example, and he was obviously listening to my words. And what I hadn't realized was just a mere 3 weeks earlier, he had almost drowned when he was in Israel. So I had to bring him back to the surface pretty quick. I was only training at this time, you have to understand as well. So there was a few tweaks I had to do with my technique. So anyway, I called on, and this wasn't part of my training actually, I called on his highest powers. First, I took him on a lot of guided imagery. I took him off to speak to the wise old man or people who have influenced him all his life, various things, various guided imagery. And I actually called on his own higher power of healing to assist him at this time. And when I brought him fully back into awareness of being in the room, etc., I asked him for feedback, and he'd said it was actually quite incredible, where he felt like his hands had been put into a socket on each side of him, like a hand on each wall, and just been absolutely charged full of the most amazing electric energy. He said it was the most incredible experience he'd ever had. That there was no one in the room with him, because it had happened when I was doing the guided the guided imagery to meet wise souls, etc., which amount to your own higher consciousness, really. But he never, ever from that time had a relapse with lupus. How amazing is that? The power of love, the power of good intention. Now, I did say to him, don't abuse this. Look into what is creating this. Look into your diet, your drinking, whatever you're doing in life, your habits. You've got to change habits, otherwise you've every chance of getting a relapse. But the last I spoke to him was 10 years after that, and he still hadn't had any relapse at the time at all. So that was another one. Let's have a little look and see what I've left out here. Oh yes, a lady here in Ireland who had been in a serious car accident, and she'd had a part of her face damaged, um, and in that she'd lost the sight in one eye, and with the damage that had been done, um, she was blinded in one eye. So the eyeball in the socket was often sore for her, but it wasn't moving. It was dry, and it was causing her great discomfort. So I suggested that maybe she would like to have a healing session, and she accepted graciously. And again, an experience of the miraculous. She said to me, she could feel her eye. This is after, when she got back to me, when she phoned me back and contacted me. She said she could feel it. She could feel the nerves knitting in her eye as I'd done the healing. And several days later, she said, I can still feel it knitting. I still feel the nerves knitting together, and her eye, she was able to move her eye around again. Now, I haven't kept in touch with her, but at that stage, I know she still couldn't see through that eye, but she was actually had a release from it being not moving. So she had the freedom of being able to move it around again. So that in itself was a wonderful thing. I hope, I would like to think that hopefully maybe she's had her eyesight restored as well, but who knows? That's not for me to know at this stage. And another experience was with my beautiful aunt. Now, I hadn't known that she had been in bed for 5 days, that she hadn't spoken, that she wasn't eating, and she was just in her bed. And I came to visit her on a Monday, and I went into the bedroom, and she didn't look happy at all. And a couple of members of her family were standing around her bed. So I asked her, would she like me to do some healing on her? And clearly she could hear me. She accepted. She said, but she didn't say yes because she couldn't speak. So I just held my hands around her head, her whole head area, for somewhere between a half an hour and maybe an hour. And after that time, she just sat up in the bed and said, it happened to be her birthday, and I brought a lot of food down. I didn't realize that in the meantime that something had happened to her. Now, she had had a mini stroke. What she said was, I wanted to speak, but I couldn't speak. She also spoke of having what she called a stoon in her ears, or her head was like a fogginess, or a woolliness, that she couldn't hear properly. She couldn't see properly. She couldn't hear properly. And she was frightened. Within 5 minutes of her being able to speak, she was out of that bed, and I'd brought a lot of food down because it was her birthday. So she absolutely ate like she was in the army. She wolfed that food down like a trooper. Hello, Mary. Anyway, her son said, "What did you do to my mother? What just happened there?" The power of love. The absolute power of love. When you love someone and you give freely from your heart, the universe is working with you because you're in line with your soul. When you're in line with your soul, miracles happen. It's no accident. Miracles happen because you're in line with your highest self, your purest self, your own supreme Godhead. These miracles happen every day. And when people come into alignment with their purpose and their human potential and their beauty, this will be happening, a regular for everyone. Now, I was brilliant at being able to heal or being a healing channel for others and my own worst enemy because I had a lot of conditions to deal with. So what I'm saying is healing is not necessarily, the person who may be the healer is not necessarily healed themselves. It is the pure loving intention that creates the environment for healing. Now, have I any more that I've missed out there? I think that's enough for now of the major ones. I just wish to say life is a miracle if you allow it to be. Life, the earth plane, is a magical kingdom when you allow it to be. We have to step into our beautifulness. We have to step into our divinity. We have to elevate ourselves into our highest, most beautiful selves. We must have no fear. We must not let anything stand in the way of being pure love. Pure love, absolute, is where we are heading as a unit. We, each and every one of us, has the ability to be powerful healers and to powerfully heal ourselves. This is all part of the empowerment. This is all part of our future evolution. To be able to know that you can heal yourself, how much fear does that remove? Most of it. Most people say your health is your wealth. Now, when I tell you that you are capable of healing yourself with due care and attention to what you're eating, to what you're thinking, and to coming into your heart space, when you come in fully into your heart space with no expectations, just a willingness to be love, believe you me, the rewards are amazing. Miracles happen every day. That sun blazes the most beautiful life force through to us every day. for the awakened soul. Don't stand in the way of you being love. Don't stand in the way of your greater part. We have to unite. We have to unite ourselves, individually, and when you come into full alignment with your own pureness and your goodness, you're automatically in alignment with everything powerful, everything good, everything powerfully good, and everyone else. You can be nothing but service when you're in your loving heart space. You can't be anything less than loving service, and my goodness, there is no greater reward, because you step beyond anything lesser. Now very soon I'm going to do a presentation on the hermetics. This is an awareness of our connection with the greater universe and how each planet of our solar system corresponds with every chakra in our body, and a much greater in depth into this subject matter, which I haven't touched on yet. I've mentioned the sun, a little bit about astrotheology, but I haven't gone into the hermetics yet, which I will do soon in a talk. I might actually do it through GarageBand. I mightn't actually just do it as a talk like this. I might do it as a complete presentation. So thank you very much for listening, and I wish you the best wherever you are and whatever you're doing. Oh, do you remember I mentioned a mouse before? Well, it's not a mouse actually, it's just a little arrow, because this is a laptop. It's just a little arrow on the screen that I don't know where the heck it is. I can't, oh, see it now. It's that little little arrow on the screen that wasn't on the center button to switch it off. So I leave you with that thought. Be love. Be love. Absolute. You owe it to yourself. Namaste. Thank you.